Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've made a video, so apologies for that, but I kind of wanted to make a video on this particular event. There's a lot of additions and some things that kind of make a lot more sense now that we've been able to kind of see a bigger picture. So let me take this time to kind of briefly talk about, I guess in a way, what we learned. First up, we've got a nice bit of information about the Antarctic region of the world. It somewhat doesn't come as a surprise that not a single faction has sole ownership of this whole region, and, well, I guess if you consider Azur a faction, then yes, Azur has complete control over this region, which gives the highest level of authority of the Antarctic region to the commander himself. Over the years, several factions would attempt to set up bases here for a variety of reasons, being it simple outposts, research posts, or really any other purpose. This eventually led to many factions attempting to do so, but only really the Eagle Union, Ironblood, and Northern Parliament actually able to set up locations here. While most of the bases were quite easy to see, it would later be revealed that not every facility here was known about, as the Ironblood and Northern Parliament had a facility that was created in secret, hidden in this region known as the Ring of the Wise. As to why they had this facility, they simply said it was a doomsday bunker to protect all personnel inside the facility. But it seems there's more to this site than what's been told. But this leads us into the reason why we're here for this story in the first place: the crystals that we've been told about. What's fascinating is these crystals have such remarkable capabilities and seem to have an affinity with riggings. But as to their full effects, how it's created, or even how it works, it remains for the most part unknown. What's really intriguing about these particular crystals is that they exist in the first place. Both the Eagle Union and Ironblood have been working with riggings, with the Type 2 and Zvali rigging, respectively. But the sheer presence of these crystals alone is just odd, to say the least. While we know that these were created in the hidden factories, the more interesting aspect of this item was how it interacted with Soyuz. What intrigues me the most about this interaction was the short scene that we witnessed before Soyuz's full transformation. It involved an interaction between three girls, two of which we've already seen, and a newer addition to the human faction. We've already met Dr. Ansel quite some time ago in Yorktown's event, and Guam's event introduced us to Silver Fox. However, this last girl is new, and there's a handful of names I've been hearing for her so far. It's hard to verify this for now, but I'll go ahead and at least give you the options that I've seen so far. But back to the crystals, what makes this shocking for us is that our source for this information was none other than Helena Meta. It's a common thing for the metas to withhold information from the commander as well as the concept of this particular branch. This makes sense because they more than likely don't want things they mention to influence how characters act in this universe, as the smallest fact might change an outcome or have unforeseen consequences that no one will ever be able to see coming. That said, we later learn that Helena Meta knows who is truly responsible for this whole ordeal and what it is that they are after. While she doesn't specifically say, it's not long before we find out who it was in the end: Pamiot Mercuria Meta. If there's one thing we could learn from this whole ordeal, is that if the metas reveals something, it's more than likely extremely important, and probably should not be disregarded from here on forward. I should also mention that this is likely going to increase, as ever since Fool's Scales, X has started posing a greater threat to the universe that we know. And with the war of attrition going on between Lovers, Empress, and Bomb Richard, it's likely Helena Meta probably feels the need to alert the commander to things that are happening around this world, and also the need to kind of nudge him a bit more to start acting and doing what he needs to get done. It's likely this reason in itself is why we get to learn about our main antagonist of this particular event, Pamiot Mercuria Meta. Now, she's been a very interesting character to take note of in this event, and the main thing being that she's quite attached to her past, and seems to be quite unable to let go of it. She's been through a lot and has lost a great deal of things during her time. This story is starting to sound very similar to a lot of the other metas we've known so far, as she's bared witness to the death of many of her colleagues, and it's likely all of that has overwhelmed her. Be it survivor's guilt or simply grief, she found herself chasing her past, trying to relive those glory days, as she would call it. We would see this a lot as the event went on. The paintings in that one gallery area, the glimpses of the alternate world that Pamiot would take Soyuz to, and even that final conversation she and Soyuz had towards the very end of the event. Speaking of that conversation at the end, I realized that this gives us a decent glimpse into not only Pamiot Meta, but a few other metas as well. See, Pamiot Meta is in a subgroup of metas known as Flickering Light. A good number of characters within this faction have been unable to deal with their pasts and move on. While Pamiot is a very clear example of this, we can also look at some of the other ship girls within this group as well. Soryu Meta keeps a copy of her sister Hiryu around as a pawn at all times. Not to mention, we've also now seen what happens when you mess with said pawn. Good job, Pamiot. And also, during Confluence of Nothingness, U556 in her meta version was attacking everything to fight for what she was holding dear, and also spoke of a nightmare where she couldn't say Bismarck. Now, Trento Meta and Yamashiro Meta, they don't really have much to add to this, but at least this pattern is here, and it's something I think we should probably note. It's likely that future Flickering Light metas might be in a similar boat, but whether they'll be enemies or allies, well, that's something we'll have to see. There are two last things that I did want to mention before I wrap things up: Project Dawn, as well as the concept of Pamiot. During her rant, Pamiot Meta mentioned that the project planner for Project Dawn was testing an experimental device and was never heard from or seen ever again. This likely references Silver Fox's division that we got to meet in Guam's event. This becomes all the more concerning when you consider that one of the very questions Silver Fox asks Constellation is if she knew anything about Project Dawn. We don't know much else about the project to this date, but we at least know a little bit of what happened after her disappearance, as the project was immediately suspended and later became a part of another larger project. We also learned through Pamiot Meta's frustration that it ended up leading to the demise of a lot of people that worked around the project. Helena Meta somewhat confirmed a few of the things that Pamiot spoke of, but said that there is a lot more to this story than simply that. It'll probably be a while before we learn everything about this project, and I'm sure it'll be very interesting to learn more. Last but not least is the concept of Pamiot Mercuria that was encountered at the end of the event. What's fascinating is that this takes a twist on what we know on concepts already within Azur Lane. For those that aren't 100% sure what concepts are, think of them like an idea, principle, description, or belief of some kind of entity or being. While it doesn't exactly exist as one entity, it can manifest itself into form with the help of what we know to be called conceptual anchors. Without the presence of an anchor, the concept can fail to manifest itself, and may even dissipate if it has already manifested. Anyway, the fact that concepts can be bound to shipgirls themselves is a major twist. This concept of Pamiot, for example, is not just the Pamiot we know or see in the story, but rather all of them at once. Now, not much else is expanded upon here, so what I want to kind of talk about from here forward are theories and ideas of my own, so please take these with a grain of salt because they could be horribly wrong. Now, shipgirls being concepts themselves makes sense, and each version that we either know, use, or see is a separate manifestation of that concept. There's a line used in this event that describes concepts quite well. Reality can only become truth if enough faith goes into it. As we've seen with concepts as a whole, this applies perfectly. From the horsemen to the divine vestige, and even the shipgirls themselves, all of this works. Faith is also something we've seen thanks to Implacable's prayer in Revelations of Dust. But you might be asking here, if shipgirls are concepts, do they have conceptual anchors? Personally, I think so, and one of these particular types of anchors likely is the Wisdom Cube itself. Another thing to note here, we've already seen that each manifestation seems to have their own experiences that they have dealt with. You can look at Pamiot that we know and the Pamiot Meta here, and they have very different backgrounds, very different events that have occurred throughout their lifetimes. But what's interesting is that Shinano is very different. She's able to see things from other timelines, and even at times plays the role of Shinano in that instance of time as well. This leads me to believe that every shipgirl's concept is connected to their manifestation. This gives two main pools of thought for me. The first being that the more manifestations of that particular shipgirl, the stronger the concept becomes, as it gains more information about what it is, what it does, and what it deals with on a daily basis. The other major train of thought that I have is that if a manifestation was to be able to synchronize itself with the concept, it would be able to know everything or understand everything from other manifestations. In a way, Shinano is trying to understand what she is. She's connected to her concept, albeit briefly. So she's not able to put everything together or realize what she's seeing, but she is still getting this little bit of information, and this can make a huge difference for her. Now, another character to consider actually is Unzen. In her dialogue, she talks about how she's seen every version of this encounter with X, and that every time she's made the same decision. There's also another scene where she is seemingly talking with herself, but this is actually the manifestation of Unzen, talking with the concept of Unzen. Once this conversation concludes, she synchronizes herself with her concept and becomes whole. It's possible that this might really be what cognitive awakening is about, the very thing that Observer Alpha has been trying to get to happen. This also reminds me of what she said to Bismarck in Scares of Iron and Blood. If you were able to transcend your limitation as Bismarck and become one with your alter ego, perhaps then you may find your answer. Become one with your alter ego. With what I can understand now, maybe that's what this was really all about. The test in Scarezel was an attempt to awaken Bismarck and synchronize her with her concept. Even if that meant turning her meta. But it's all my guess right now, and that's food for thought. Maybe we'll find out in the near future. I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. But that's all I can really say for this event so far. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and also that you did enjoy the lore of this particular event. It was definitely quite the revelating experience. If you do have questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'll try to keep an eye on them and answer what I can. But that is all I have for you guys now. Whether you're a regular viewer or a patron supporting the channel on Patreon, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all again real soon. Later!